I still remember the exact moment when my phone pinged with Vanessa's text message. I was sitting at my desk in my Chicago apartment, rain tapping against the window as I reviewed client files. The message was casual, almost flippant. "Hey, Emma. Slight change of plans for the Keys trip. We're going with a couples-only theme now, so no singles. Hope you understand." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 4 years of planning this family vacation, thousands of dollars already invested in flights and reservations, countless group chats discussing excursions, all erased with a single text from my sister-in-law just 3 weeks before departure. And the kicker? I was the one who'd found Palm Cove Resort in the first place. I was the one who'd coordinated everyone's schedules. I was the one who'd researched the best restaurants, snorkeling spots, and sunset cruises. But none of that mattered to Vanessa. Because I didn't have a partner, I no longer fit into her picture-perfect family vacation aesthetic. Growing up in Lakeside, Michigan, I was always the responsible one. While other kids were throwing parties when their parents were away, I was the designated emergency contact. When my brother Ryan brought home mediocre grades, our parents would sigh and say, "Why can't you be more like Emma?" I graduated top of my class, built a successful career as an event planner in Chicago, and always showed up for family. That included planning this trip to Palm Cove Resort in the Florida Keys, a reunion my parents had been talking about for years. "Before we get too old to enjoy it," Mom would say with that hint of gentle guilt that mothers perfect over decades. I'd spent months coordinating everyone's complicated schedules. My parents, Carol and Richard, my brother Ryan and his wife Vanessa, my cousin Megan and her husband, and me. Solo, independent me. The first red flag appeared 6 months before, the trip when Vanessa started a separate group chat without me. "Just for the couples to discuss some things," Ryan explained awkwardly when I asked about it. I brushed it off, focusing instead on finalizing our reservations and creating detailed itineraries that accommodated everyone's interests. Dad wanted fishing. Mom wanted to relax by the pool. Megan was interested in local history tours. I made it all work, meticulously fitting the puzzle pieces together. 2 months before departure, Vanessa began making small comments during our family dinners. "It's so much easier traveling as a couple," she'd say, glancing at me. Or, "Emma, you should really try that new dating app. You need someone to experience life with." Each comment landed like a paper cut, small but stinging. Still, I never imagined she'd actually uninvite me. Not after I'd already paid my share. Not after I'd taken time off work. Not after I'd been the driving force behind making this trip happen in the first place. I stared at her text for a full 5 minutes, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. My first instinct was to call Ryan and demand an explanation. My second was to cry. I did neither. Instead, I took a deep breath and typed, "I'm sorry, what? We've been planning this for years. My flight is booked. My portion is paid." Her response came quickly. "I know, it's such a bummer, but Ryan agrees it would be more fun this way. We can plan something else with you another time? Maybe a day? Trip to Michigan City this fall?" My hands were shaking now. I called Ryan immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried my parents next. Mom answered on the 4th ring, her voice hesitant. "Oh, Emma. I thought Vanessa was going to talk to you about the changes. She texted me that I'm uninvited. Please tell me you're not okay with this." There was a long pause. "Honey, we didn't know how to tell you. Vanessa thinks it would be less awkward without any singles. And since we're staying in her timeshare points, I felt like I'd been slapped. Mom, I found the resort. I coordinated everyone's schedules. I created the itineraries. I know, sweetie, and we appreciate it so much. But Vanessa is family too, and if this is what she and Ryan want..." My mother's voice, trailed off. But the message was clear. Vanessa's comfort mattered more than my inclusion, more than fairness, more than the thousands of dollars and countless hours I'd invested. That night, I barely slept. I scrolled through our group chats, finding hints I'd missed. Vanessa tagging only the couples in excursion ideas, Ryan deflecting. When I asked about room arrangements, the slow, deliberate erasure of my presence from a trip I had breathed into existence. Morning brought clarity, along with a bitter realization. This wasn't just about a vacation. This was about years of being taken for granted, of being the reliable one, the planner, the one who showed up without question, and now, the one who could be discarded when inconvenient. I opened my laptop and navigated to the Palm Cove Resort website. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as a plan began forming in my mind. Not a petty plan, not even a vengeful one, just a decision to finally choose myself. 3 phone calls and 1 significant credit card charge later, I sent a single message to the family group chat. I understand the trip has changed. I hope you all have a wonderful time. Then I turned off my notifications and went back to work, a strange lightness spreading through my chest despite everything. The following week passed in a blur of client meetings and preparations. My family sent occasional messages, mostly awkward attempts at normalizing their decision. "We'll miss you," from Mom. "Next time for sure," from Ryan. Only Megan called. Directly, apologetic but unwilling to rock the boat by standing up for me. "You know how Vanessa gets," she said, as if that explained everything. I listened politely, replied with neutral comments, and kept my plans to myself. For once in my life, I wasn't going to be the responsible one, the understanding one, the one who stepped aside to keep the peace. 7 days before their departure date, I received an anxious call from my mother. "Emma, honey, there's been a mix-up with the resort. They're saying our reservations have been changed." I cradled the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued packing my suitcase. "Oh, what kind of mix-up?" "They said we've been moved to different dates. A week later." Vanessa is beside herself. She's been on the phone with them for hours, but they keep saying the reservations were modified by the primary booking contact. I folded a sundress carefully, smoothing out the wrinkles. That's strange. Have they offered any solution? They said there's nothing they can do. They're completely booked for our original dates because some corporate event reserved the entire property. Her voice lowered to a whisper. "Emma, we can't change our flights. Ryan can't take different days off. This is a disaster." "That sounds really frustrating," I said, placing my sun hat atop the neatly packed clothes. "I'm sure Vanessa will figure something out. She's resourceful." There was a pause, then Mom's voice, suspicious now. "Emma, did you have anything to do with this?" I zipped my suitcase closed. "Mom, I'm actually heading out for a bit. Let's talk later, okay? Love you." I ended the call before she could respond and checked my own reservation details one more time. In precisely 48 hours, I would be checking into Palm Cove Resort, where I had indeed booked every available room for the exact dates of our original family vacation. The corporate event that had accidentally displaced my family? That was me. The cost had been astronomical, even with my industry connections and a very understanding resort manager who'd heard the whole sordid story. I'd dipped into my savings, leveraged some favors from industry colleagues, and committed to hosting a series of future corporate events at the property to offset the expense. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Was it extreme? Absolutely. Was it worth it? I was about to find out. As my plane descended toward the Florida Keys 2 days later, my phone exploded with messages. Vanessa had somehow discovered what I'd done, probably by harassing the resort staff until someone let the truth slip. Her texts ranged from incredulous to furious, culminating in, "Is this some kind of joke? You're ruining our family vacation over a petty misunderstanding." Ryan was next. "Emma, this is insane. You need to fix this now." Then Mom, "I don't understand why you would do this, honey. We can still make this work as a family." Dad, ever the man of few words, disappointed in you, Em. Only Megan sent something different. "Holy shit. I didn't think you had it in you. Please tell me you have an extra room because I kind of want to see this play out." I didn't respond to any of them as I collected my luggage and settled into the taxi that would take me to Palm Cove. The resort was even more beautiful than the pictures, a secluded paradise of swaying palms, crystal clear waters, and elegant bungalows scattered across a private peninsula. The manager greeted me personally at reception. "Ms. Wilson, we're delighted to have you with us. Your event preparations have been arranged as requested, and we've upgraded you to our premium oceanfront suite." I smiled, feeling a strange mix of guilt and liberation. "Thank you. And the other accommodations I asked about?" He nodded discreetly. "All taken care of. The nearby Pelican Bay Resort had several openings for the dates your family needed. We've sent over our recommendations, though they haven't confirmed yet." I thanked him and settled into my suite, a breathtaking space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the turquoise waters of the Keys. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I had chosen myself over family obligation. The feeling was foreign, almost intoxicating. I changed into a swimsuit, ordered a mojito from room service, and stepped onto my private balcony to watch the sunset. That's when I saw them, my entire family, standing in the resort's elegant lobby that was visible from my vantage point. Vanessa gesticulating wildly at the front desk staff. Ryan pacing with his phone pressed to his ear. My parents looking lost and confused. They had actually flown down, despite knowing their reservations had been changed. I withdrew from the balcony, heart pounding. This wasn't part of the plan. They weren't supposed to show up at all. They were supposed to rebook at Pelican Bay, the perfectly lovely alternative resort I'd arranged as a peace offering. A petty gesture, yes, but not a cruel one. My phone rang. Ryan. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom called, then Vanessa. Finally, Megan. I answered Megan's call. "They all came," I said without preamble. "Yeah," Vanessa insisted. Said if you could throw money around to book an entire resort, you could fix this in person. Megan's voice was hushed. "I'm hiding in the bathroom right now. It's a total nightmare." Vanessa's threatening to call her attorney cousin. I closed my eyes. "Where are you staying tonight?" "No idea. Vanessa keeps saying you'll cave when you see us. That you'll feel too guilty to let your family sleep on the beach." And there it was, the assumption that had defined my entire relationship with my family. That I would always bend, always accommodate, always put their needs above my own. "Tell them I'll meet them for dinner in an hour," I said finally, "at the beachfront restaurant." I hung up, changed into a simple white sundress, and steeled myself for confrontation. When I entered the restaurant, they were already seated at a large table on the patio, faces grim. Vanessa spoke first, standing to face me with her arms crossed. "I hope you're pleased with yourself. You've ruined everything." I took the empty seat beside Megan, oddly calm. "Hello to you too, Vanessa." "Emma," my father's voice was stern, "this has gone far enough. Tell the resort to honor our original reservations." I looked around at their faces, angry, disappointed, entitled. No. The simple word seemed to shock them into silence. "No," I repeated. "I won't be doing that." Vanessa recovered first. "This is ridiculous. You're acting like a spoiled child because you got uninvited from one trip." "A trip I planned." I interrupted. A trip I invested thousands of dollars in. A trip that was important to me. We said we'd plan something else with you, Ryan offered weakly. I laughed, the sound surprising even me. A day trip to Michigan City. That was the consolation prize Vanessa offered after 4 years of planning this. You can't possibly need the entire resort, Vanessa snapped. This is pure spite. Actually, I leaned forward. I do need it. I've invited 20 of my clients for an appreciation retreat. They arrive tomorrow. Corporate event planners, hotel, executives, travel coordinators, the people who make my business successful, the people who value what I contribute. This was only partially true. I had invited a handful of industry contacts to join me, but nowhere near 20, and they weren't arriving until the weekend. Where are we supposed to stay? My mother asked, her voice small. I've arranged accommodations for you at Pelican Bay Resort. It's lovely. Beachfront property, excellent restaurants, all the amenities you could want. Your rooms are paid for. Vanessa's jaw dropped. You expect us to stay at some second rate? It's a 5-star resort, Vanessa, I cut in. And yes, I do expect that. Because when you decided to uninvite me from this trip, you made it clear where I stood in this family, somewhere below your couples-only aesthetic. Emma, Ryan started. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said quietly. And you know what? It made me realize something important. I've spent my entire life being the responsible one, the planner, the one who makes everything work for everyone else, and in return, I get discarded when inconvenient. I gestured to a waiter who approached with an envelope. Here are your reservation details for Pelican Bay. Your rooms are paid for. The resort is expecting you within the hour. And if we refuse to leave? Vanessa challenged. I met her gaze steadily. Then you'll need to find accommodations elsewhere, because you don't have reservations here, and the keys are fully booked this time of year. My father stood abruptly. I never thought I'd see the day when my own daughter would throw her family out of a resort. The guilt I'd expected to feel didn't materialize. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. And I never thought I'd see the day when my family would exclude me from a trip I created, then expect me to fix it when their plans fell apart. One by one, they stood, Vanessa fuming, Ryan avoiding my eyes, my parents radiating disappointment. Only Megan remained seated, a barely concealed smile playing at her lips. Are you coming? Vanessa snapped at her. Megan looked at me, then back at the group. Actually, I think I'll stay here tonight. Emma and I have some catching up to do. After they left, Vanessa practically dragging my brother away, my parents following with slumped shoulders, Megan raised her glass in a toast. That, she said, was the most spectacular thing I've ever witnessed. I clinked my glass against hers, a complex mixture of emotions washing over me. I still paid for their rooms at Pelican Bay, I admitted. I'm not a monster. Megan laughed. No, you're just finally standing up for yourself. It's about time. We sat there as twilight settled over the water, the tiki torches casting warm light across the empty tables around us. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, and somewhere, in the distance, steel drums played a cheerful melody that seemed at odds with the family drama that had just unfolded. Do you regret it? Megan asked after a while. I considered the question carefully. I regret that it came to this. I regret that my relationship with them might never be the same. I took a sip of my drink. But I don't regret choosing myself. For once. I don't regret refusing to be the family doormat anymore. Megan nodded thoughtfully. For what it's worth, I think this was a long time coming. And honestly, Pelican Bay is gorgeous. They'll survive. The next morning, I woke to a text from my mother. We're checked in at Pelican Bay. Your father and I would like to talk. Can we meet for breakfast? I agreed to meet them at a small cafe halfway between the resorts. They were already seated. When I arrived, both looking tired but less angry than the night before. "Emma," my father began awkwardly after I sat down, "we've been doing some thinking." My mother reached across the table to take my hand. "Honey, we didn't realize how much we've taken you for granted, not just with this trip, but with everything. For years," my father added, "we've relied on you to be the responsible one, the planner, the fixer. And somehow, we started to see those qualities as obligations rather than choices you were making. What you did with the resort was extreme," Mom continued, "but it made us realize something important. We've never really seen things from your perspective." I felt tears threatening and blinked them back. It hurt so much when you all decided I didn't belong on this trip, like I was an afterthought, disposable. "You're not disposable, Emma," Dad said firmly. "You're the glue that holds this family together, and we took that for granted." "What about Ryan and Vanessa?" I asked. Mom sighed. "Ryan feels terrible. He admitted that he went along with Vanessa's couples-only idea because it was easier than standing up to her. As for Vanessa," she exchanged a glance with my father. "She's still pretty angry, but that's her problem, not yours." "I know. What I did was dramatic," I admitted. "Probably too dramatic." Dad actually chuckled. "It was certainly effective. And if I'm being honest, part of me is proud that you finally stood up for yourself, even if your method was unconventional." "We'd like to join you at Palm Cove," Mom said tentatively. "Not for the whole week. We know you have clients coming, but maybe for a day or two, if you'll have us." I felt something shift inside me. Not a complete healing, but the beginning of one. "I'd like that. And for the record, my clients don't arrive until Saturday." I may have exaggerated that part. Dad laughed outright this time. "Like mother, like daughter. Your mom once convinced a landlord we had diplomatic immunity to get out of a lease. By the end of breakfast, we had a new plan. My parents would join me at Palm Cove for 3 days, then return to Pelican Bay for the remainder of the trip. Ryan had texted to ask if he could visit as well, without Vanessa, who had declared she wouldn't step foot in Emma's resort on principle. As we walked back toward Palm Cove, the morning sun warming our shoulders, Mom squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry we made you feel like you had to choose between yourself and your family. That's never a choice anyone should have to make." "I'm learning that sometimes choosing yourself is the only way to redefine the relationship," I replied. "It shouldn't have taken booking an entire resort to make that point. But here we are." Dad put his arm around my shoulders. "Here we are indeed. And where exactly are we staying in this resort you've commandeered?" I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "The best rooms in the house, with a view you won't believe." 3 days later, as promised, my industry colleagues began arriving, 8 in total, not the 20 I'd claimed, but enough to justify my corporate event story. To my surprise, they were thrilled by the dramatic backdrop of my family saga, many of them sharing similar stories of being taken for granted by clients and family alike. By the week's end, what had started as an act of defiance had transformed into something unexpected, a professional networking opportunity, a family reckoning, and for me, a personal revelation. I had found my voice, drawn my boundaries, and discovered that the world didn't end when I put myself first. On our final night, my parents, Ryan, Megan, and I sat around a bonfire on the beach, the stars impossibly bright above us. Ryan raised his glass in a toast. "To Emma," he said solemnly, "who taught us all that sometimes you have to book an entire resort to make people appreciate you." We laughed, and in that moment, I felt the last pieces of resentment begin to melt away. Not completely. Some lessons leave permanent marks, but enough to move forward. "Next family trip," I said. "Everyone gets a vote, and everyone who's invited stays invited." "Deal," they echoed in unison. As the fire crackled and the waves lapped gently at the shore, I realized something profound. This vacation hadn't gone according to anyone's original plan, but maybe it had gone exactly as it needed to. Sometimes the most important journeys aren't about the destinations at all, but about finding your place, not just within a family, but within yourself. And sometimes, just sometimes, you have to book an entire resort to find it. The morning after Vanessa's uninvited text, reality settled over me like a heavy fog. I stared at my laptop screen, travel confirmation emails mocking me from my inbox. $3,246. That's what I'd already spent on flights, my share of the accommodations, and the various excursions I'd booked in advance. Money that was now essentially wasted because my sister-in-law had decided I didn't fit into her couple's aesthetic. I hadn't slept well, my mind replaying years of similar moments when my needs had been brushed aside for the sake of family harmony. The time my parents missed my graduate school graduation because Ryan had a minor fender bender the same day. The Christmas when Vanessa insisted we all spend the holiday at her parents' home, despite Mom's recent surgery making travel difficult. The countless family dinners where my career achievements were acknowledged with polite nods, while Ryan's promotions warranted champagne toasts. My phone buzzed, a message from my assistant about a client meeting. I forced myself to focus on work, pushing thoughts of Palm Cove and betrayal aside. As an event planner, I'd built my reputation on precision, reliability, and problem solving. Clients came to me when they needed the impossible made possible. Ironic, considering I couldn't even secure my own place on a family vacation. Around noon, my office phone rang. Mom again. "Emma, honey, have you thought more about what we discussed?" I tightened my grip on the receiver. "You mean about how I've been uninvited from a trip I planned?" "Yes, I've thought about it." She sighed. "I know it seems unfair." "Seems?" I cut in, surprising myself with my sharpness. "It doesn't seem unfair, Mom. It is unfair." "Vanessa just thinks it would be more balanced with couples," she explained, her voice taking on that placating tone she'd perfected when mediating between Ryan and me as children. And since they're contributing the most financially with the timeshare points. I closed my eyes, swallowing the lump forming in my throat. "So my contribution doesn't count because it's not in timeshare points? What about the $3,000 I've already spent? What about the hundreds of hours I've spent planning?" "Of course that counts, sweetie. It's just what?" A pause. Vanessa can be difficult when she doesn't get her way. You know how she is. Sometimes it's easier to just go along with what she wants. And there it was, the unspoken family rule. Keep Vanessa happy at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing Emma. "I have to go, Mom. I have a client waiting." I hung up before she could respond. There was no client, just a desperate need to end a conversation that was making me feel simultaneously furious and invisible. That afternoon, I found myself going through old photo albums stored in my hallway closet. Pictures of family vacations from my childhood, Ryan and me building sandcastles, Dad teaching us to fish, Mom applying sunscreen to our sunburned shoulders. We looked happy. Normal. When had that changed? When had I become dispensable? My phone chimed with a text from Ryan. "Hey, Em, Mom said you're upset. Can we talk?" 10 years ago, I would have responded immediately. 5 years ago, I might have waited an hour to show my displeasure, but would have eventually given in. Today, I put the phone down without replying and continued flipping through photographs. Another text came through. "Emma, seriously, don't be like this. Vanessa didn't mean anything by it." I felt a laugh bubble up, bitter and harsh. Didn't mean anything by it? She had explicitly uninvited me from a family vacation. How could that possibly not mean anything? I finally responded, "If she didn't mean it, then I'm still invited. Is that what you're saying?" His reply came quickly. "It's complicated. We just think it would be more fun this way. We can do something with just you another time. More. Fun without me. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I have to work, I texted back, then silenced my phone. I returned to my laptop, absent-mindedly scrolling through emails when a notification from Palm Cove Resort popped up. Last-minute availability. Book now for exclusive offers. I clicked the link, not really sure why. Perhaps morbid curiosity about what I'd be missing. The resort's website loaded, showcasing pristine beaches, luxurious accommodations, and smiling guests enjoying paradise. A chat window appeared in the corner. How can we assist you today? I hesitated only briefly before typing. I'm curious about booking the entire resort for a corporate event. What would that entail? The response came quickly. I'd be happy to connect you with our events coordinator. May I have your name and the dates you're interested in? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was ridiculous, impulsive, financially reckless. I was about to close the window when another text from Ryan appeared on my phone. Vanessa says if it's about the money you already spent, they can help cover some of it. Not all, but some. Some. After everything I'd contributed, they were offering to reimburse some of my expenses as an afterthought, like tossing scraps to a dog. I turned back to the chat window and typed, Emma Wilson, and I'm interested in booking the entire resort for the exact dates my family was planning to be there. I included the dates, then added, money isn't an issue. I'd like to know what's involved. Within minutes, my phone rang with a Florida area code. Ms. Wilson, this is Margot Reeves, events director at Palm Cove Resort. I understand you're interested in a full property buyout. I took a deep breath. Yes, I am. Wonderful. May I ask what type of event you're planning? This will help us tailor our offerings to your needs. What was I planning? Revenge? A statement? Financial suicide? A corporate appreciation retreat, I heard myself say. For my top clients and industry contacts. Perfect. Now, a full buyout includes all 32 rooms and suites, exclusive access to all facilities, and customized staffing. The investment is substantial, as you might imagine. I understand. Can you email me the details? Of course. I should mention that we do have some existing reservations for those dates, but for the right accommodation, we might be able to relocate those guests to partner properties. My family's reservations, the ones I had helped secure. That sounds ideal, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded when my heart was racing. After hanging up, I sat motionless, staring at the wall. What was I thinking? I couldn't actually go through with this. It would cost tens of thousands of dollars. It would create a permanent rift in my family. It was, by any rational standard, insane. But when the email from Margot arrived 30 minutes later with the quote, I didn't delete it. I read every word, calculating figures in my head. I had savings, substantial savings actually. I'd been meticulous with money my entire adult life, investing wisely, spending cautiously. The opposite of Ryan and Vanessa, who leased new cars every 2 years and took on a mortgage they could barely afford. My emergency fund was healthy. My investment portfolio was doing well, and I had connections in the hospitality industry that might help negotiate a better rate, especially if I promised to bring actual corporate clients for future events. I opened my financial planning spreadsheet and ran the numbers. It would hurt, significantly, but it wouldn't ruin me. And if I scaled back, maybe didn't book the entire resort, but just enough rooms to displace my family. No. If I was going to do this, I wouldn't do it halfway. Go big or go home, as Dad always said. I picked up the phone and called Margot back. I've reviewed your proposal, I said when she answered. I'd like to proceed, but I have some conditions. Of course. Ms. Wilson, we're here to accommodate your needs. First, I'd like to ensure that the displaced reservations, specifically my family members, are offered accommodations at a comparable resort nearby, at my expense. There was a pause. That's unusually generous, Ms. Wilson. Second, I'd like to negotiate on the total price. I'm an event planner myself, and I can commit to bringing legitimate corporate business to Palm Cove in the future if we can reach a reasonable arrangement. I see. That certainly changes things. Let me speak with our management team and get back to you. We ended the call, and I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. Had I really just initiated a plan to book an entire resort to prevent my family from staying there? Was I actually considering spending a small fortune on what amounted to an elaborate screw you to my sister-in-law? Yes, I was. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of negotiations, contracts, and bank transfers. By 5 p.m., it was done. I had secured exclusive use of Palm Cove Resort for the week my family had planned to visit, and arranged for them to be, coincidentally, relocated to Pelican Bay Resort, a 5-star property just down the coast. The total cost made my stomach clench, but the deal was better than the initial quote, thanks to my industry connections and the promise of future business. I justified it as a dual-purpose expense, part personal vacation, part business development. I would invite some actual clients and contacts, make it legitimate. That night, I slept surprisingly well. Better than I had in months, actually. As if making this wildly disproportionate decision had somehow lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. The next morning, I awoke to a text from my mother. "Emma, please call when you get a chance. We need to finalize some details for the trip." I smiled into my pillow. They had no idea what was coming. Not yet. The resort wouldn't notify them of the unforeseen circumstances necessitating their relocation until next week, just days before their scheduled arrival. Part of me felt guilty. My parents were collateral damage in my war against Vanessa. But another part, a part that had been silenced for too long, felt exhilarated. For once, I wasn't accommodating everyone else at my own expense. For once, I was choosing myself. I texted Mom back, "Can't talk now. In meetings all day. Everything's on track for the trip." Which wasn't technically a lie. The trip was indeed on track, just not the track they were expecting. Over the next few days, I went about my life normally. I attended client meetings, worked on upcoming events, even met a friend for dinner. I didn't mention my impulsive resort booking to anyone. It felt like a dream sometimes, something too outlandish to have actually happened. On Thursday evening, exactly 1 week before their planned departure, I received a frantic call from Vanessa. I stared at her name on my screen, tempted to let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. "Hello? Emma, thank God you answered. There's a problem with the resort." Her voice was shrill, panicked. I made my voice deliberately calm. "What kind of problem?" "They're saying our reservations have been moved to another property. Some nonsense about the resort being booked for a private event. This is a disaster. We've had these reservations for months." I bit my lip to keep from laughing. "That's strange. Did they offer an alternative?" "Yes, some place called Pelican Bay, but that's not the point. I specifically wanted Palm Cove for the Instagram opportunities. The other resort might not be as photogenic." Of course, that would be her primary concern. "Have you checked if Pelican Bay is comparable in quality?" I asked innocently. "I don't care if it's comparable. I wanted Palm Cove. Ryan's been on the phone with them for an hour, but they keep saying there's nothing they can do. The entire property has been reserved for some corporate event." I made a sympathetic noise. "That's really frustrating. What are you going to do?" "Well, we're trying to figure that out," she snapped. "Can you use your event planning connections to fix this? You must know people in the hotel industry." And there it was, the expectation that I would swoop in and solve the problem, the same problem that I had meticulously created. "I can make some calls," I said, "but I can't promise anything." Corporate buyouts are pretty ironclad. Just do what you can, and quickly. We leave in a week. She hung up without so much as a thank you. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, a smile spreading across my face. It was working exactly as planned. Vanessa was in a tailspin, and for once I wasn't rushing to fix things for her. My phone buzzed again, Ryan this time. We've got a situation with the resort. Vanessa's freaking out. She called me, I said. Sounds stressful. Can you help? You know people in this industry? Maybe pull some strings? I closed my eyes, savoring the moment. I'll see what I can find out, but corporate events usually take priority. They spend a lot more money than individual guests. Just try, okay? Vanessa's set on Palm Cove. She's already bought new swimsuits specifically for their infinity pool. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I'll make some inquiries, I said, knowing those inquiries would lead nowhere. After hanging up, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop to check my own reservation at Palm Cove. The Premier Oceanfront Suite was confirmed in my name. In exactly 1 week, I would be sipping cocktails by that famous infinity pool while my family, minus Vanessa, who would probably refuse to go at all once she realized the situation couldn't be fixed, would be settling into their rooms at Pelican Bay. I should have felt guilty. A decent person would have felt guilty, but all I felt was a profound sense of justice. For years, I had been the family fixer, the accommodator, the one who bent until breaking. Not this time. The next day brought more panicked calls. Mom, confused, and concerned about the change in plans. Dad, gruffly asking if I'd had any luck sorting out this resort mess. Even my cousin Megan called, more amused than upset. So apparently we're getting bumped from Palm Cove, she said, laughter in her voice. Vanessa is having a complete meltdown. She actually called the resort manager incompetent trash before Ryan took the phone away. I winced. That's not going to help their case. No kidding. Anyway, I've looked up this Pelican Bay place and it actually seems really nice. Maybe even nicer than Palm Cove, but don't tell Vanessa I said that. Your secret's safe with me, I assured her. So, Megan's voice lowered conspiratorially. Have you tried working your event planner magic to fix this? I hesitated. Megan and I had always been close, more like sisters than cousins. If there was anyone in the family I might confide in, it was her. Actually, there's something you should know, I began, then stopped myself. Not yet. It was too risky. I've made some calls, but it doesn't look promising. Corporate events take precedence. That's what I figured. Oh well, I'm still looking forward to the trip, though it'll be weird without you there. I felt a twinge of something, not quite guilt, but close. About that. Megan, how would you feel if I joined you in Florida anyway? Seriously? Even after Vanessa's couples-only decree? She'd have a fit. I know, but I already paid for my flight, and maybe I could stay somewhere nearby, meet up with you all for certain activities. I think it's a great idea, Megan said firmly. Vanessa doesn't get to dictate who goes on vacation where. If you want to come to Florida the same week we're there, that's your business. I smiled, appreciating her loyalty. Thanks, Megan. I'll think about it. 2 days later, chaos erupted in the family group chat when the resort officially notified everyone that their reservations had been relocated to Pelican Bay due to unforeseen circumstances. The messages came rapid fire. Vanessa, this is unacceptable. I'm calling a lawyer. Ryan, let's not overreact. Pelican Bay looks nice too. Mom, I'm sure it will be lovely regardless of where we stay. Dad, as long as they have fishing, I don't care. Vanessa, Ryan, I can't believe you're taking their side. We reserved Palm Cove specifically for my social media content calendar. Ryan, I'm not taking sides. I'm being practical. Vanessa, Emma, have you made any progress getting this fixed? I hadn't responded to the group chat yet, watching the drama unfold with a mix of amusement and vindication. Finally, I typed, I've spoken with some contacts. Unfortunately, it seems the entire resort has indeed been booked for a corporate event. From what I understand, it's a major client appreciation retreat for an event planning company. Technically, not a lie. Vanessa, what company? Maybe we can contact them directly. Me, I don't have that information. Client confidentiality. Vanessa, this is ridiculous. I'm going to find out who's responsible for this and make them regret it. If only she knew. The irony, of course, was that Vanessa's determination to stay at Palm Cove specifically, a resort she had initially been lukewarm about when I first suggested it, had only intensified since being told she couldn't have it. Classic Vanessa. She only truly wanted things once they became unattainable. As the trip drew closer, the family's focus shifted from trying to get back into Palm Cove to reluctantly accepting the Pelican Bay alternative. Everyone, that is, except Vanessa, who continued her campaign of outrage, calling the resort daily to see if the situation had changed. Meanwhile, I was quietly preparing for my own vacation. I packed my favorite sundresses, new swimsuits, and the stack of novels I'd been meaning to read for months. I confirmed my flight details and arranged for a private car service from the airport. 3 days before departure, I received an unexpected call from Ryan. Emma, we need to talk about the trip. His tone made me wary. What about it? I've been thinking. It's not right that you're missing out because of this couples-only thing, especially since you did so much of the planning. I sat up straighter. Oh? Yeah. So I was thinking maybe you could join us at Pelican Bay after all. I've talked to Vanessa about it, and while she's not thrilled, she's agreed it's the fair thing to do. Not thrilled, as if allowing me to participate in a vacation I had planned was some great concession on her part. That's thoughtful of you, Ryan. But I've actually made other plans for that week now. What? What plans? I'm going on vacation, somewhere else. Not technically a lie. Wait, so you're going on a different trip entirely? After all that fuss about being uninvited from ours? I bristled at his tone. Yes, Ryan. After being explicitly told I wasn't welcome on the family vacation, the one I spent years planning, I might add, I decided to make alternative arrangements for my time off. Is that a problem? No, we feel bad about how things turned out. We wanted to make it right. Too little, too late. I appreciate the thought, I said, not meaning it at all. But I've already committed to this other trip. Non-refundable deposits and all that. Where are you going? He asked, curiosity overriding his disappointment. For a split second, I considered telling him the truth, imagined the stunned silence, followed by the explosion of disbelief and anger. But no, the reveal would be so much sweeter in person. Just a little place I found in Florida, I said vaguely. Nothing fancy. The day before my flight, I received one final call from my mother. Emma, honey, are you sure you won't reconsider joining us? Ryan said you've made other plans, but surely you could adjust them. The whole family will be there, and it won't feel right without you. The whole family. The family that had decided. I was expendable just weeks earlier. I can't, Mom. My arrangements are all set. She sighed heavily. I understand. It's just, this was supposed to be a special family time. It was, I agreed, until Vanessa decided I didn't qualify. As family because I'm single? That's not fair, Emma. Vanessa just wanted... I know exactly what Vanessa wanted, Mom, and what she wanted was more important to all of you than including me. So I made my own plans. I hope you have a wonderful time at Pelican Bay. I hung up, feeling a mixture of sadness and resolve. Tomorrow, I would board a plane to Florida. Tomorrow, the plan I had set in motion would reach its culmination. Tomorrow, my family would discover exactly who had displaced them from their coveted Palm Cove Resort. And for the first time in my life, I wouldn't be there to smooth things over when they fell apart. The flight to Florida seemed to stretch on forever, each minute ticking by in slow motion as I contemplated what awaited me. I'd chosen a different airline than my family typically used, ensuring we wouldn't accidentally cross paths at the airport. A small precaution, but I wasn't ready for that confrontation. Not yet. Not on their terms. My seat neighbor, an elderly woman with kind eyes and a penchant for conversation, noticed my restlessness. "First time to the Keys?" she asked, offering me a butterscotch candy from a small tin. I accepted the candy with a small smile. "No, actually. I've been planning this trip for years." "Ah, a special occasion then? Anniversary, perhaps?" I unwrapped the candy, considering her question. "More of a personal milestone," I said finally. "A declaration of independence, you might say." She nodded sagely as if this made perfect sense. The best trips are the ones that change us from the inside out. If only she knew. As the plane began its descent, the azure waters of the Florida Keys came into view. Endless shades of blue, stretching toward the horizon, dotted with lush green islands and the white streaks of boats cutting through the waves. Despite the circumstances, I felt a flutter of excitement. I'd dreamed of this place for so long, researched every detail, and now I was finally here, just not in the way I'd imagined. The resort's private car service was waiting at the airport as arranged, a sleek black SUV with my name displayed on a digital tablet. The driver, a cheerful man named Carlos with salt and pepper hair and a ready smile, greeted me warmly. "Ms. Wilson, welcome to the Keys. First time visiting us?" I settled into the plush leather seat as he loaded my luggage. First time, yes. I've been looking forward to it for quite a while." "Well, you picked the perfect place to stay. Palm Cove is the crown jewel down here. My sister-in-law works in housekeeping there. Says they've been going crazy preparing for some big corporate event this week. That wouldn't happen to be yours, would it?" I tensed momentarily before forcing a casual laugh. "Yes, actually. I'm hosting a client appreciation retreat." Carlos whistled appreciatively as he pulled onto the overseas highway. "Must be some important clients to book the whole place. My sister-in-law said they had to relocate a bunch of SIL reservations. Some lady was raising hell about it, called the manager every name in the book. Vanessa had to be." "That's unfortunate," I murmured, gazing out at the sparkling water. "I hope the alternate accommodations were satisfactory." "Oh, Pelican Bay is beautiful too. Different vibe, but just as nice. Some folks might even prefer it, though don't tell the Palm Cove people I said that." He chuckled, oblivious to the tension his casual conversation was creating. The drive was spectacular. A journey across bridges spanning impossibly blue waters, past quaint towns and lush vegetation. Under different circumstances, I would have peppered Carlos with questions about local attractions and hidden gems. Instead, I monitored my phone anxiously, waiting for the inevitable moment when my family would discover my presence in Florida. So far, nothing. They probably assumed I was off sulking in Chicago, nursing my wounded pride while they enjoyed paradise. Palm Cove Resort appeared like a mirage on the horizon, a collection of elegant white buildings nestled among swaying palms, the afternoon sun casting everything in a warm, golden glow. As we approached the ornate entryway, I steeled myself. This was it. No turning back now. The resort manager, a polished woman named Alexandra with immaculate dark hair and a crisp linen suit, waited at the entrance. "Ms. Wilson, welcome to Palm Cove." She extended her hand with a warm smile. "We're absolutely thrilled to host you and your event. Everything has been prepared according to your specifications." I shook her hand, acutely aware of how bizarre this situation was. I wasn't hosting a legitimate corporate event. I was essentially paying an obscene amount of money to make a point to my family. Thank you, Alexandra. I appreciate all your efforts, especially given the short notice. She waved dismissively. We pride ourselves on flexibility. Now, shall we get you settled in the presidential suite? Then perhaps a tour of the property? Presidential suite? I had booked the premier oceanfront suite, not the presidential. Before I could correct her, she continued. We took the liberty of upgrading you, given the scope of your buyout. It's our finest accommodation, 3 bedrooms, private infinity pool, dedicated staff. I think you'll find it quite comfortable. I followed her through the airy lobby, past trickling fountains and fragrant floral arrangements, trying to look like someone who regularly booked entire resorts and stayed in presidential suites. The resort was even more stunning than the pictures. Open-air corridors framed postcard-worthy views at every turn, lush gardens created secluded nooks for relaxation, and the constant sound of the ocean provided a soothing soundtrack. The presidential suite took my breath away, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing panoramic ocean views, elegant furnishings in soothing coastal tones, and sliding glass doors leading to a private terrace with its own infinity pool. This is extraordinary, I managed, taking in the champagne chilling in a silver bucket, the elaborate fruit arrangement, and the handwritten welcome note. Alexandra beamed. Only the best for you, Ms. Wilson. Now, regarding your guests, we understand. They'll begin arriving tomorrow? My mythical corporate clients. Right. Actually, there's been a slight change of plans. I improvised. Most will be arriving this weekend. It'll be a smaller group than initially anticipated. She nodded, making a note on her tablet. Perfect. That gives you time to enjoy the resort more privately. We've reserved Coral Restaurant for your welcome. Dinner on Saturday as requested. Is there anything else you need at the moment? I glanced around the opulent suite that could comfortably house my entire family. No, this is perfect. Thank you. After Alexandra left, I wandered through the suite in a daze, running my fingers over plush furnishings and gleaming surfaces. The entire situation felt surreal. I had never been impulsive. My entire life had been built on careful planning, rational decisions, and financial prudence. Yet here I was, having spent more money than I'd ever spent on anything, essentially, to prove a point. I stepped onto the terrace, letting the warm tropical breeze wash over me. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and pinks. Below, resort staff moved about, preparing the poolside for evening cocktails. Everything was peaceful, perfect, and eerily empty, given that I was the only guest in a resort designed for dozens. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my cousin Megan. Just landed in Florida, checked into Pelican Bay. It's actually really nice, but don't tell Vanessa I said that. She's still in mourning over Palm Cove. When do you leave for your mystery vacation? I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Should I tell her? Megan had always been my ally, the one family member who saw through Vanessa's manipulations. But if I told her, would she feel obligated to inform the others? Would it ruin the revelation I had planned? Already at my destination, I replied vaguely. Enjoying the first day. Have fun at Pelican Bay. I set my phone down and sank into a lounger, watching the sky transform as sunset approached. The weight of what I'd done, the money spent, the deception maintained, the confrontation to come, pressed on me. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in. Was this elaborate scheme really worth it? Wouldn't it have been simpler to just accept the uninvite, plan my own separate vacation, and avoid the drama? Maybe. But simpler didn't mean better. For too long, I'd taken the path of least resistance when it came to my family, swallowing my feelings and accommodating their demands. This was about more than just a vacation. It was about years of being taken for granted, of having my needs dismissed, of being treated as an afterthought rather than an equal member of the family. Still, as darkness fell over the resort and I found myself alone in the massive suite, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of loneliness. I had orchestrated this entire situation, yet somehow I was the one dining alone, while my family, despite being at a different resort than planned, were together. I ordered room service rather than sitting by myself in one of the resort's elegant restaurants, then spent the evening on the terrace, watching the stars emerge and listening to the rhythmic sound of waves meeting the shore. Tomorrow would bring either vindication or regret, possibly both. But for tonight, I would try to enjoy this beautiful place I had quite literally purchased for myself. Morning arrived with brilliant sunshine streaming through the windows and the cheerful call of tropical birds. I had slept surprisingly well, the comfortable bed and sound of the ocean lulling me into dreamless sleep. After a leisurely breakfast on the terrace, I changed into a swimsuit and a gauzy cover-up, deciding to explore the resort properly. The grounds were even more impressive by daylight. Meticulously landscaped gardens bursting with vibrant flowers, hidden pathways leading to secluded seating areas, and the famous infinity pool that seemed to merge seamlessly with the ocean. Beyond, the staff greeted me warmly wherever I went, addressing me by name with a deference that felt foreign. I settled on a cushioned lounger by the main pool, accepting a fruit-garnished water from an attentive server. The day stretched before me with unlimited possibilities. I could swim, book a spa treatment, take one of the resort's kayaks out to explore the coastline, or simply lie here soaking up the sun. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, my time was entirely my own. No family obligations, no work responsibilities, no one's needs to consider but my own. It was both liberating and disorienting. I was just considering a swim when my phone rang, my brother Ryan. I braced myself before answering. "Hello? Emma? Where are you right now?" His voice was tight, suspicious. "On vacation, like I told you." "Why?" "Because something very weird is happening. We're at Pelican Bay, which is nice enough, I guess, but Vanessa is still upset about Palm Cove. So she convinced me to drive over there this morning, just to see what this corporate event that displaced us looks like." My heart began to race. "Oh? And what did you find?" "A ghost town, Emma. The place is practically empty. There's staff everywhere, but hardly any guests." We asked at the front desk about the event, and they said the resort was reserved for an exclusive private function hosted by, get this, Emma Wilson. "Here we go." "That's quite a coincidence," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Coincidence? Emma, are you at Palm Cove right now? Did you book the entire resort just to keep us out? Please tell me there's another Emma Wilson in Chicago who works in event planning." I took a deep breath. "No, there isn't." Silence stretched between us, tense and heavy. "I don't understand," he finally said. "Why would you do this? Do you have any idea how much money—" "I'm well aware of how much money it cost," I interrupted. "Just like I'm aware of how much money and time I invested in planning a family vacation I was uninvited from." "This is insane, Emma. Completely disproportionate to what happened. So Vanessa wanted a couples trip. That I planned," I cut in again. "That I had already spent thousands on. That I was excluded from with a text message 3 weeks before departure." Ryan's voice lowered to a harsh whisper. "Vanessa is absolutely losing it right now. She's in the car having a complete meltdown. She's threatening to call the police. For God's sake." "On what charges? I haven't done anything illegal." "You deliberately sabotaged our family vacation." "No, Ryan. I booked a legitimate reservation at a resort where I had every right to stay. The fact that it displaced your reservations is unfortunate, but as Vanessa made clear, I'm not part of this family vacation anyway." I could hear Vanessa's voice in the background, shrill and demanding to know what I was saying. "This is so childish," Ryan said, frustration evident in his voice. "I can't believe you would go to these lengths just because your feelings were hurt." My feelings weren't hurt, Ryan. I was excluded, disrespected, and taken for granted. Again. And instead of standing up for me, you all went along with it. So yes, I decided to make a point. By wasting what must be tens of thousands of dollars? This isn't making a point, Emma. This is having a temper tantrum on an epic scale. I felt heat rise to my face. You know what, Ryan? I've spent my entire life accommodating this family. Planning gatherings, mediating conflicts, being the responsible one. And what do I get in return? A text message uninviting me from a trip I created because I don't fit the couple's aesthetic. Emma, no, I'm not finished. You want to know what's childish? Excluding someone from a family event because they're single. What's childish is expecting me to just accept that treatment and then help fix the situation when things don't go as planned. What's childish is calling me names because for once, just once, I decided not to put everyone else's needs above my own. The line went quiet, save for the muffled sound of Vanessa's continued ranting in the background. "So what now?" Ryan finally asked. "You're just going to stay at Palm Cove by yourself for a week?" "That's the plan. Although I did arrange for all of you to have rooms at Pelican Bay, which I understand is quite lovely. You know Vanessa is going to tell everyone about this, right? Mom and Dad are going to be devastated." A pang of guilt shot through me at the mention of our parents. They were collateral damage in this situation. Not innocent exactly, given how quickly they'd sided with Vanessa, but not the primary targets of my scheme either. "I imagine they will be," I acknowledged. "Just like I was devastated when my own family decided I wasn't important enough to include in a vacation I spent years planning." "You're being dramatic." "I'm being honest, Ryan, for the first time in a very long time." More muffled conversation in the background then. "Vanessa wants to come talk to you. We're driving to Palm Cove now." Alarm shot through me. "Ryan, that's not a good idea. We all need time to cool down." Too late. We're already on our way. She insists on seeing this for herself. The call ended before I could protest further. I sat up, pulse racing. This confrontation was coming sooner than I'd anticipated, and I wasn't sure I was ready. Vanessa in full rage mode was a force to be reckoned with. Manipulative, cutting, and utterly convinced of her own righteousness. I gathered my things and hurried back to my suite, alerting the front desk on my way. "I'm expecting some associates who may be in a somewhat agitated state. Could you please direct them to my suite when they arrive?" The receptionist nodded professionally. "Of course, Ms. Wilson. Would you like security to escort them?" "That won't be necessary," I assured her, though part of me was tempted by the offer. Just let them know where to find me. Back in my suite, I changed quickly into a simple white sundress, ran a brush through my hair, and applied a touch of lipstick. If I was going to face Vanessa's wrath, I at least wanted to look composed while doing so. The confrontation, when it came, was every bit as explosive as I'd feared. The knock on my door was more of a pounding, and I opened it to find Vanessa, face flushed with anger, designer sunglasses pushed up into her perfectly highlighted hair. Ryan stood behind her, looking simultaneously embarrassed and irritated. "You!" Vanessa hissed, pushing past me into the suite. "I cannot believe you would do something this petty, this spiteful." I closed the door calmly. "Hello to you too, Vanessa." "Ryan." Vanessa spun in a slow circle, taking in the luxurious suite with widening eyes. "The presidential suite? Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how much this costs per night?" "I do, actually. It was an upgrade. A perk of booking the entire resort." She advanced on me, finger pointing accusingly. "You did this just to spite me. Just because I wanted one vacation without having to worry about entertaining the single sister-in-law. Just because for once I wanted things my way." I felt something inside me snap, the last thread of restraint I'd been clinging to. For once, I laughed incredulously. Vanessa, everything has been your way since the day you married my brother. Every holiday, every family gathering, every decision has revolved around your preferences, your comfort, your demands. That's not true. It is true. Remember last Christmas when Mom was recovering from surgery, but we all had to go to your parents' house 2 hours away because you couldn't bear to break tradition? Remember my graduate school graduation that everyone missed because you had a fender bender, not even an actual accident, and insisted Ryan stay with you instead of attending? Remember? Those were completely different situations, she interrupted, voice rising. No, they weren't. They were all examples of you putting yourself at the center of everything, and everyone else accommodating you. Until now. Ryan stepped between us, hands raised. Emma, this is crazy. You've spent a fortune just to prove some point about Vanessa being selfish? How does that make you any better? I turned to my brother, surprisingly calm despite the confrontation. I'm not trying to be better, Ryan. I'm trying to be equal, to have my feelings and contributions valued the same way Vanessa's are. And if this is what it takes to make that point, so be it. You could have just talked to us, he insisted. I did talk to you. I called you immediately after getting Vanessa's text. I explained how hurtful it was to be excluded from a trip I had planned. And what did you say? That it would be more fun this way, and that you'd do something with me another time. As if I was a child being promised ice cream to stop a tantrum. Ryan had the grace to look uncomfortable. Vanessa, however, was not backing down. So what now? She demanded. You're going to stay here, all alone in this massive resort, while we're stuck at Pelican Bay? That was the plan, yes. Although I've invited some industry colleagues to join me later in the week. Consider it a business development opportunity. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You're unbelievable. Wait until Carol and Richard hear about this. They're going to be so disappointed in you. The mention of my parents sent a jolt of unease through me, but I held my ground. I imagine they will be, just like I was disappointed when they decided that keeping you happy was more important than including their daughter. Ryan sighed heavily. Emma, you know they love you. This isn't about... It is about that, Ryan. It's about years of family dynamics where Vanessa's wishes automatically outweigh mine, where I'm expected to be understanding and accommodating, while she gets to be demanding and inflexible. Vanessa threw up her hands in exasperation. This is ridiculous. I'm not staying here listening to this. Ryan, we're leaving. She stormed toward the door, pausing only to deliver a parting shot. Enjoy your empty resort, Emma. I hope it was worth destroying your relationship with your family. Ryan lingered, looking torn. Emma, please reconsider this. It's not too late to fix things. We could all stay here together, make the best of it. I shook my head slowly. That's not possible, Ryan. This isn't just about where we all sleep this week. It's about patterns that have been in place for years. Patterns I'm no longer willing to accept. He nodded reluctantly. I understand that you're hurt. But this? He gestured around at the opulent suite. This isn't the way to address it. Maybe not, I conceded. But it's the way I chose. And for once, my choice is the one that matters. After they left, I sank onto the sofa, emotions swirling. The confrontation had gone more or less as expected. Vanessa outraged, Ryan disappointed, neither of them truly understanding why I had taken such drastic action. Next would come my parents, who would undoubtedly be upset once they heard what I'd done. Megan might understand, but even she would probably think I'd gone too far. Had I gone too far? The question echoed in my mind as I stared out at the ocean, its surface glittering under the afternoon sun. The amount of money I'd spent was objectively outrageous, The disruption I'd caused to a family vacation was undeniably significant. Viewed from the outside, my actions might indeed seem like a petty, disproportionate response to being uninvited from a trip. But it wasn't just about the trip. It was about years of having my needs brushed aside, of being expected to understand and accommodate while others, particularly Vanessa, were allowed to make demands without consideration for anyone else. It was about finally saying enough, in a way that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. My phone began buzzing with messages. My parents, no doubt having heard from Ryan and Vanessa. I silenced it, not ready for that conversation yet. Instead, I walked back out to the terrace, letting the warm breeze and rhythmic sound of the waves calm my racing thoughts. Tomorrow would bring more confrontations, more explanations, more emotional fallout. But for now, for this moment, I allowed myself to simply be, to exist in this beautiful space I had claimed for myself, to breathe, to feel the weight of expectations lifting from my shoulders. For once in my life, I had chosen myself over family harmony. And while that choice came with consequences, I was only beginning to understand. It also came with a newfound sense of power. The power to define my own worth, to establish my own boundaries, to demand the respect I deserved. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in vivid hues of orange and pink, I made a silent promise to myself. Regardless of what happened next, I would not go back to being the accommodating, invisible Emma who put everyone else's needs before her own. That version of me was gone, left behind in Chicago along with the life I had outgrown. The Emma who stood here now, watching the sunset from a terrace she had paid an exorbitant amount to secure, was different, stronger, ready to face whatever came next with the knowledge that she had, at last, found her voice. The aftermath of Ryan and Vanessa's visit left me drained yet strangely liberated. I watched their rental car pull away from my balcony, Vanessa's animated gesturing visible even from a distance as she undoubtedly continued her tirade. The resort returned to its peaceful state, just me, the staff, and the endless horizon where sky met ocean. My temporary solitude was short-lived. Within an hour, my phone lit up with my parents' names on the screen. I took a deep breath before answering. "Emma." My father's voice was measured but stern, his crisis management tone. "We need to talk about what's happening." "I assume Ryan and Vanessa have filled you in," I said, settling into a chair on the terrace. "They said you've rented the entire Palm Cove Resort to prevent us from staying there." "Tell me that's not true." I watched a pelican dive into the water in the distance. "It's not entirely accurate. I booked the resort for my own stay and some business associates joining me later in the week. The fact that it displaced your reservations was an unintended consequence." The silence that followed told me he wasn't buying it. Emma Elizabeth Wilson, my mother's voice now. She'd clearly put the phone on speaker. "This isn't like you. Spending this kind of money on... what exactly? Revenge?" "It's not revenge, Mom. It's self-respect." "Self-respect doesn't cost thousands of dollars, honey." "Apparently it does when your family is concerned," I countered, surprising myself with my directness. "Because nothing less dramatic would have made you recognize how deeply hurtful it was to be excluded from this trip." My father sighed heavily. "Emma, we understand you were disappointed." "Disappointed?" "Dad, I was devastated. I spent years coordinating this vacation. I invested thousands of dollars. I created detailed itineraries accommodating everyone's interests. And then I got a text, not even a phone call, informing me I wasn't welcome anymore because I'm single." "We didn't handle it well," Mom admitted. "But this response is extreme." "You know what's extreme? The fact that not one of you stood up for me. Not one of you told Vanessa that excluding me was unacceptable. You all just went along with it, like my feelings didn't matter at all." Another weighted silence. "We're your parents, Emma," Dad finally said. "We love you. Of course your feelings matter." Then why didn't they matter 3 weeks ago when Vanessa decided I was expendable? My mother's voice grew small. "We thought you'd understand. You always do. You're our rock, Emma. The reasonable one. The one who makes everything work." Her words hit me like a physical blow. "That's the problem, Mom. I'm tired of being reasonable while everyone else gets to be selfish. I'm tired of making everything work for everyone except myself." "So what now?" Dad asked. "Are we supposed to just stay at Pelican Bay while you have Palm Cove to yourself?" I closed my eyes, gathering my resolve. "That's the plan, yes. Your rooms at Pelican Bay are paid for. It's a beautiful resort. You'll have a lovely time." "This is ridiculous," Dad muttered. "We're a family. We should be together." "We should be," I agreed. "But Vanessa decided otherwise when she uninvited me, and you all supported that decision." "Emma, please," Mom's voice cracked. "Can't we fix this? Can't we all stay at Palm Cove together? There must be room enough." The pleading in her voice nearly broke my resolve. For a moment, I considered giving in, telling them to pack their bags and join me, preserving family harmony as I always had before. But then I remembered how easily they had all accepted my exclusion, how readily they had prioritized Vanessa's whims over my feelings, how consistently they had expected me to be the bigger person, the accommodating one, the one who bent so others wouldn't have to. "I'm sorry, Mom. That's not possible. I've made commitments to colleagues who will be joining me later in the week." "More important than your family?" Dad challenged. "My family made it clear I wasn't important enough to include in this vacation. So yes, right now these commitments take precedence." The conversation ended with their disappointment hanging heavy in the air. I understood their perspective. From the outside, my actions looked petty and vindictive. But they didn't understand what this moment represented, a seismic shift in how I allowed myself to be treated, not just by them, but by everyone. As evening fell, I wandered down to one of the resort's restaurants, Coral Reef, an elegant space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. The maitre d' greeted me with a warm smile. "Good evening, Ms. Wilson. Table for one?" I nodded, following him to a prime table with an unobstructed view of the sunset. The waiter appeared promptly with a wine list and menu. "Chef Martin has prepared a special tasting menu this evening, if you'd be interested. He was quite excited to learn about your event and wanted to showcase some local specialties." I smiled at the irony. My fabricated corporate event was becoming increasingly elaborate in the staff's imagination. "That sounds wonderful. Please thank Chef Martin for me." As I sipped a glass of crisp Sauvignon Blanc and watched the sky transform from blue to orange to deep purple, my phone buzzed with a text from Megan. "Can we talk? Alone? I'm at Pelican Bay but could meet you somewhere." I hesitated, then replied, "Come to Palm Cove. Ask for me at reception. They'll bring you to me." An hour later, as I was savoring a perfectly prepared Key West pink shrimp dish, Megan was escorted into the restaurant. Her eyes widened as she took in the elegant space, nearly empty save for me and a few staff members. "Holy shit, Emma," she whispered as she slid into the chair across from me. "You actually did it. You booked the entire resort." I gestured for the waiter to bring another wine glass. "Not quite how I planned to spend my vacation budget, but yes." Megan shook her head in disbelief. "The family is in complete meltdown mode. Vanessa keeps threatening to call her lawyer cousin, though what exactly she thinks he'll do is unclear. Uncle Richard is pacing and muttering about financial responsibility. Aunt Carol is crying on and off. It's chaos. And Ryan? Oscillating between defending you to Vanessa and defending Vanessa to your parents. It's quite the performance." She accepted the wine the waiter poured. But forget them for a minute. How are you? Really? I considered the question, turning my wine glass. Slowly. Conflicted. Part of me knows this was an absolutely insane response to being uninvited from a trip. The practical, responsible Emma is horrified at the money I've spent. But another part is enjoying the hell out of it, Megan supplied with a sly smile. I laughed softly. Is finally standing up for myself, setting boundaries, demanding respect. Megan raised her glass in a toast. To boundaries, long overdue. We clinked glasses, and for the first time since arriving in Florida, I felt truly relaxed. Megan had always been more like a sister than a cousin, the one family member who saw through the dynamics that had shaped our relationships for years. So what happens next? She asked, sampling the chocolate dessert the waiter had placed between us. After this week, I mean. Things can't go back to how they were. No, I agreed. They can't. I don't know exactly what comes next, but I know I won't be the family doormat anymore. Megan nodded thoughtfully. You know, I've always admired how you take care of everyone, but I've also worried that you give too much, that someday you'd reach a breaking point. Like booking an entire resort out of spite? I offered wryly. Like finally putting yourself first, though I have to admit, the scale of this gesture is pretty impressive. She gestured around at the nearly empty restaurant. It's a hell of a statement. An expensive one, I acknowledged, but somehow worth it. As we finished our dessert, Megan's expression grew serious. Aunt Carol asked me to talk to you, to convince you to let them all stay here. I tensed. And are you going to try? She shook her head firmly. No, I told her I support you, that maybe this will finally make them see how they've been taking you for granted all these years. Relief washed over me. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow's family dinner at Pelican Bay is going to be brutal. Vanessa's on the warpath, and your parents are torn between being angry at you and blaming themselves. I sighed. Are you going? Wouldn't miss it. Someone needs to represent Team Emma. She tilted her head, studying me. You could come, make a grand entrance, really drive home the point. The thought was simultaneously tempting and terrifying. I don't think that would help matters. Probably not, she agreed. But it would be epic. After Megan left, I took a long walk along the resort's private beach, the gentle surf illuminated by the moon and strategically placed tiki torches. The sand was cool beneath my feet, the night air warm against my skin. I felt lighter somehow, vindicated by Megan's unwavering support. The next morning brought a text from my father. Your mother and I would like to speak with you in person. Coffee at Palm Cove? Just the three of us. I stared at the message, conflicting emotions warring within me. Part of me wanted to refuse, to maintain the distance I'd established, to let them sit with the consequences of their choices a bit longer. But another part recognized this as a potential olive branch, a first step toward the new family dynamic I hoped to create. 11 a.m. at the beachfront cafe, I replied. They arrived precisely at 11, looking slightly out of place amidst Palm Cove's elegant minimalism. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed from crying, Dad's posture stiff with lingering disapproval. I led them to a table I'd reserved on the covered terrace, the ocean breeze tempering the late morning heat. This place is beautiful, Mom said after we'd ordered coffee, her eyes sweeping over the pristine beach beyond. I can see why you worked so hard to plan this trip. It is, I agreed, noticing how they both looked tired, the strain of the situation, evident in the new lines around their eyes. Dad cleared his throat, hands clasped tightly on the table. Emma, we owe you an apology. This was not how I'd expected the conversation to begin. We've been thinking a lot about what you said, he continued, about how we've allowed Vanessa to dictate family decisions, about how we've taken your flexibility and understanding for granted. Mom reached across the table to touch my hand. You've always been our steady one, Emma. The child we never had to worry about. And somewhere along the way, we started taking that for granted. We expected you to accommodate everyone else because that's what you've always done, Dad added. And that wasn't fair to you. I felt a lump forming in my throat. No, it wasn't. What you did with this resort is extreme, Mom said carefully. But it made us realize how deeply we hurt you, how we failed to protect you from being excluded. We should have stood up for you, Dad said firmly. Family vacations should include the whole family. The sincerity in their voices nearly undid me. For years, I had craved this recognition, this acknowledgement that my feelings mattered as much as anyone else's, that my contributions were valued, that I deserved to be protected too. I appreciate that, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the vacation. It's about a pattern that's existed for years, one where Vanessa's demands automatically outweigh my needs, where I'm expected to be endlessly understanding while she gets to be endlessly demanding. They exchanged a look, the kind of wordless communication that comes from decades of marriage. We see that now, Mom said softly. And we're committed to changing it. Starting today, Dad added, which brings us to why we wanted to talk to you. Here it comes, I thought. The request to let everyone stay at Palm Cove after all, the pressure to be reasonable, to forgive and forget, to maintain family harmony at my own expense. Instead, Dad surprised me. We'd like to stay at Palm Cove with you if you'll have us. Not Ryan and Vanessa, just us. We want to spend time with our daughter, and frankly, the drama at Pelican Bay is exhausting. I blinked, caught off guard. What about Vanessa? Won't she be upset if you leave? Mom's expression hardened slightly. Probably. But for once, that's not our primary concern. You are. The simple declaration brought tears to my eyes. For so long, I had wanted to hear those words, to be someone's primary concern, to have my feelings prioritized, to be chosen over keeping the peace. I'd like that, I said finally. I'd like that very much. Later that afternoon, as resort, staff moved my parents into a suite near mine. I received a furious text from Vanessa. I can't believe Carol and Richard are abandoning us to stay with you after what you did. This is manipulation at its finest. I silenced my phone without responding. Let her rage. For once, I wasn't responsible for managing her emotions or soothing her ego. For once, I wasn't the only one making sacrifices to accommodate others. The days that followed were surprisingly healing. Away from Vanessa's influence, my parents relaxed visibly. We went snorkeling in the crystal-clear waters, took a sunset cruise, enjoyed long dinners filled with laughter and conversations that had nothing to do with family drama. It was like rediscovering each other after years of relating through the distorted lens of family politics. Midweek, as promised, my industry colleagues began arriving, 8 in total, a mix of clients and fellow event planners I'd invited to join me once my scheme was already in motion. The resort came alive with their presence, the previously empty restaurants and pools now filled with appreciative guests enjoying the exclusive experience. My mother watched them with curiosity over breakfast one morning. Are these the people you were planning to bring all along? I nodded, spreading mango preserves on toast. Most of them. I may have exaggerated the size of the group when booking the resort. She smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. And they all think this was planned as a legitimate corporate retreat? They do. And it's turning out to be exactly that. A chance to build relationships, share industry knowledge, relax in an incredible setting. So your impulsive act of rebellion has become a strategic business move, Dad observed, looking impressed. Despite himself, I laughed. Life works out in unexpected ways sometimes. On Thursday evening, Megan joined us for dinner at Coral Reef, bringing news from Pelican Bay. Ryan finally stood up to Vanessa, she reported with obvious satisfaction. She was planning this whole scene where they'd come here and confront you again. Maybe try to force their way into staying at Palm Cove. He told her absolutely not, that she needed to accept that her actions had consequences. Good for Ryan, Mom said, surprising me with her firmness. How did Vanessa take it? I asked. Megan grinned. Not well. There was door slamming, threat-making, the usual Vanessa special. But Ryan held firm. I think seeing you stand your ground gave him permission to do the same. The realization struck me then. My actions hadn't just changed how I related to my family. They had shifted the entire family dynamic. By refusing to be the accommodating one, I had created space for others to reconsider their own roles in the system we had built together. The final day of our vacation arrived with perfect weather, clear blue skies, gentle breezes, and temperatures warm enough for swimming, but not so hot as to be uncomfortable. My parents and I spent the morning on a private boat tour, spotting dolphins and exploring hidden coves along the coastline. As we returned to the resort, I spotted a familiar figure waiting on the dock, my brother Ryan, alone and looking uncharacteristically nervous. He asked if he could see you, Dad explained. We told him it was up to you. I nodded, appreciating that they had respected my boundaries instead of automatically assuming I would agree to see him. I'll talk to him, I decided, alone. Ryan and I walked along the beach in silence for several minutes, the tension between us thick but not entirely hostile. This place is amazing, he finally said, gesturing to the resort behind us. I can see why you fought so hard to stay here. It wasn't about the resort, Ryan. I know. He stopped walking, turning to face me directly. It was about respect, about being valued as a member of this family, not just tolerated when convenient. I nodded, surprised by his insight. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. He continued, about how we've all enabled Vanessa's behavior, about how unfair we've been to you. And you were right. He kicked at the sand, looking genuinely remorseful. I've let Vanessa dictate terms for too long because it was easier than standing up to her. I've watched her dismiss your feelings, your contributions, your needs, and I've said nothing because keeping her happy seemed more important than being fair to you. The admission was more than I had expected, more awareness than I had given him credit for. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, he added, or to suddenly trust that things will be different. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see how wrong it was, and I'm committed to changing it. What about Vanessa? I asked, the critical question hanging between us. His expression grew troubled. That's complicated. She's still angry, still insisting you overreacted. But this situation has forced me to recognize some hard truths about our relationship. About how her needs always come first. About how everyone else is expected to accommodate her. And you're not okay with that anymore? No, he said firmly. I'm not. I've told her things need to change, not just with how she treats you, but with how she approaches everything. Whether she's willing to do that work remains to be seen. I studied my brother's face, seeing a determination there that had been absent for years since he first started dating Vanessa, if I was being honest. I'm proud of you, I said finally. Standing up to someone you love isn't easy. You would know, he replied with a small smile. You stood up to all of us. We continued walking, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. His work, my business, childhood memories that had nothing to do with current tensions. By the time we returned to the resort, something had shifted between us. Not a complete healing, but the beginnings of a new understanding. Mom and Dad mentioned they're staying for dinner, Ryan said as we neared the main building. Would it be okay if I joined you? Just me. he added quickly. Vanessa's having dinner with some people she met at Pelican Bay. I considered the request, weighing my lingering hurt against the genuine effort he was making. I'd like that, I decided. That evening, as the four of us gathered for dinner on the terrace of my suite, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. Not because everything was perfectly resolved. It wasn't, and the road ahead would undoubtedly contain more difficult conversations and adjustments. But because something fundamental had changed. I had claimed my power. I had demanded respect. I had drawn a line that said my feelings and needs mattered just as much as anyone else's. And in doing so, I had not only transformed how my family saw me, but how I saw myself. A toast, my father proposed, raising his glass. To Emma, who taught us all a valuable lesson about respect, boundaries, and the true meaning of family. We clinked glasses as the last rays of sunlight glinted off the water. Tomorrow, we would return to our regular lives, carrying with us the changes that had been set in motion on this unexpected vacation. Vanessa would still be Vanessa, difficult, demanding, resistant to change. Old patterns would try to reassert themselves. New boundaries would be tested. But I was different now, stronger, clearer about what I deserved and what I would no longer tolerate. And that, I realized as I looked around at my family, imperfect but trying, was worth every penny I had spent on this extravagant gesture of self-respect. Sometimes, the most valuable thing money can buy is the courage to finally stand up for yourself. 6 months after the Florida Keys incident, as my family had taken to calling it, I stood in my Chicago apartment packing for another trip. This time, a legitimate business conference in San Diego, where I was scheduled to speak about luxury event planning. The irony wasn't lost on me. My impulsive decision to book an entire resort had somehow elevated my professional reputation. When several industry publications picked up the story of my innovative client appreciation retreat. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Call when you have a minute. Need to discuss Thanksgiving plans." I smiled, noting the difference in her approach. 6 months ago, she would have simply informed me of whatever arrangements Vanessa had dictated. Now she was asking for my input before any decisions were made. Small steps, meaningful ones. I dialed her number, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued folding clothes into my suitcase. "Emma, thanks for calling. Back so quickly. How's the packing going?" "Almost done. What's up with Thanksgiving?" "Well, your father and I were thinking of hosting at our house this year. A proper family gathering, everyone together." She paused. "Including you, of course. Non-negotiable." The emphasis on my inclusion wasn't subtle, but I appreciated it. Nonetheless. "Sounds good to me. Who else will be there?" "Megan and David, obviously. Your father's sister Jane and her husband, and..." She hesitated slightly. "Ryan will be coming. Alone." The implication hung in the air between us. I sat on the edge of my bed, giving the conversation my full attention now. "Alone? So he and Vanessa are..." "Still figuring things out," Mom said carefully. "They've been separated for about a month now. Ryan's staying in a rental near his office. He hasn't said much, but your father ran into him for lunch last week, and he mentioned they're in counseling. The news shouldn't have surprised me. The cracks in their relationship had been evident during our final days in Florida, with Ryan finally standing up to Vanessa after years of acquiescence. Still, hearing it confirmed sent a complicated mix of emotions through me. Concern for my brother, a touch of guilt about my role in the situation, but also hope that he was finally prioritizing his own well-being. "How is he doing?" I asked. "Better than expected, actually. He seems lighter somehow. Said he's been reconnecting with friends Vanessa never approved of, taking up hobbies he'd abandoned. He's even thinking about applying for that transfer. to Boston he always wanted but never pursued because Vanessa refused to move. I absorbed this information, remembering how Ryan had once been passionate about the Boston opportunity, a leadership role that would have advanced his career significantly. He'd dropped it immediately when Vanessa complained that Boston was too cold and too far from her parents. "That's good," I said finally. "I'm glad he's focusing on what he wants for a change." "We all are. And Emma." Mom's voice softened. "I know the resort situation created a lot of tension, but in many ways it was the wake-up call this family needed, especially Ryan." I wasn't sure how to respond to that. I hadn't booked Palm Cove with the intention of catalyzing my brother's separation or forcing my family to confront years of unhealthy dynamics. I'd simply reached my breaking point after one slight too many. "I didn't do it to break them up," I said carefully. "Of course not. But sometimes the right action has ripple effects we never anticipated." She sighed. "Anyway, we'd love to have you for Thanksgiving. Your father's already planning the menu around your favorites." "I wouldn't miss it," I promised. After the call ended, I sat motionless on the bed, reflecting on how much had changed in half a year. The family's communication patterns had shifted dramatically. My parents called regularly now, genuinely interested in my life and career. They made efforts to include me in decision-making rather than presenting me with fate's accomplice. And, perhaps most significantly, they had finally stopped positioning me as the flexible, accommodating counterbalance to Vanessa's demands. My relationship with Ryan had evolved too. Initially tentative as we navigated our new dynamic, we'd gradually found our way back to the closeness we'd shared before Vanessa entered the picture. Weekly phone calls, occasional dinners when he visited Chicago for business, text threads filled with inside jokes and shared memories. It felt like rediscovering a part of myself I'd forgotten existed. And Vanessa? We hadn't spoken directly since that confrontation at Palm Cove. She'd sent a single email a month after we all returned from Florida, a carefully worded non-apology that acknowledged tensions but stopped short of taking any responsibility. I'd responded with equal diplomacy, making it clear that any future relationship between us would require genuine respect and consideration, not just surface politeness. She hadn't replied. I finished packing for San Diego with these thoughts swirling in my mind. The conference represented another positive outcome of the Palm Cove decision. The connections I'd made during that week had led to speaking engagements, new clients, and a feature in an industry magazine highlighting innovative approaches to corporate events. My business was thriving in ways I hadn't anticipated. The next morning, as I waited for my rideshare to the airport, my phone lit up with a text from Megan. "Heard the news about Thanksgiving? Family gathering minus Hurricane Vanessa? Should be interesting. Call me from San Diego." I smiled, typing, "Back. Will do. Speaking tomorrow afternoon. Wish me luck." "You don't need luck," came her immediate response. "Anyone who can book an entire resort out of spite can handle a little public speaking. You've got this." Her confidence warmed me as I headed to the airport. Megan had been my unwavering ally throughout the aftermath of the Florida incident, defending my actions to family members who initially saw only the extremity of my response, without understanding the years of dismissal and disregard that had preceded it. San Diego greeted me with perfect weather, 75 degrees, clear blue skies, and a gentle ocean breeze that carried the scent of salt and sunscreen. My hotel room overlooked the Pacific, and I spent my first evening sitting on the balcony, watching the sun sink below the horizon in a spectacular display of orange and pink. The serenity of the moment contrasted sharply with the chaos that had surrounded my last beach vacation. The conference itself was larger than I'd expected. Nearly 2,000 attendees from across the hospitality and event planning industries. My session, scheduled for the second day, was already marked as standing room only in the conference app. Apparently, my reputation had preceded me. Emma Wilson, an elegant woman with silver-streaked hair, approached me during the opening. Reception? Margot Reeves from Palm Cove Resort. I've been hoping to run into you. I nearly choked on my champagne. Margot, the events director who had helped arrange my impromptu resort buyout. The one who had listened sympathetically to my family drama and facilitated what was, objectively, an absurd revenge plot. Margot, I had no idea you'd be here. She smiled warmly. Wouldn't miss it, especially when I saw your name on the speaker list. Your event at Palm Cove has become something of a legend in our industry circles, you know. Has it? I felt a flush creeping up my neck. Oh, absolutely. The exclusivity, the last-minute arrangements, the corporate client showcase. It was brilliantly executed. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Though between us, I always suspected there was more to the story than a simple corporate retreat. I laughed nervously. What makes you say that? Her eyes twinkled, with amusement. 20 years in this business, darling. I know a personal mission when I see one. The way you insisted on relocating that specific family to Pelican Bay, the upgrade to the presidential suite that faces the main entrance. Let's just say it had all the hallmarks of making a point. Had I been that transparent? Or was Margot simply exceptionally perceptive? It's nothing to be embarrassed about, she continued, sensing my discomfort. Some of the best events are born from personal passion. And whatever your motivation, you created something remarkable. So remarkable, in fact, that we've adjusted our corporate buyout packages based on your model. The conversation shifted to industry topics, but Margot's comments lingered in my mind throughout the evening. I had never considered that my impulsive act might have professional implications beyond my own business. The thought that Palm Cove was now offering Emma Wilson-style corporate packages, essentially marketing my petty revenge as a luxury experience, was both hilarious and strangely validating. My presentation the following afternoon went better than I could have hoped. The room was packed, with attendees sitting in the aisles and standing along the back wall. I spoke confidently about creating exclusive experiences that foster genuine connection, carefully omitting the fact that my signature event had been born from family dysfunction rather than strategic planning. The key is understanding that sometimes less is more, I explained, clicking through slides showing the intimate gatherings I'd arranged at Palm Cove. By limiting attendance and focusing on personalized experiences, you create an environment where meaningful relationships can flourish. The audience nodded appreciatively, scribbling notes and snapping photos of my presentation slides. No one needed to know that the meaningful relationships at my Palm Cove event had included a confrontation with my sister-in-law and several tear-filled conversations with my parents. After the session, a line of industry colleagues waited to speak. With me, business cards extended, questions about my methodology and approach coming rapid fire. I felt like an imposter fielding their queries. How do you explain that your innovative business model was actually an elaborate middle finger to a family that had taken you for granted? That evening, I treated myself to dinner at a beachfront restaurant, selecting a table with an unobstructed view of the sunset. As I sipped a glass of Cabernet and waited for my entree, my phone rang. Ryan. Heard your presentation was a hit, he said when I answered. Mom said you texted that people were sitting in the aisles. I smiled, touched that he was following. My conference experience. News travels fast. It went well, though it's strange being approached as some kind of event planning visionary when the whole thing started as you reclaiming your power? He suggested when I trailed off. The phrase caught me by surprise. So accurate, yet not how I would have articulated it myself. Something like that, I agreed. Well, from what Mom shared about your talk, you've turned it into something legitimate. Taking a difficult situation and creating success from it, that's a talent, Emma. One you've always had. His words warmed me more than the wine. Thanks, Ryan. That means a lot. A brief silence fell between us. Comfortable rather than awkward. Actually, he said finally, there's a reason I called. I wanted you to hear it from me first. Vanessa and I are filing for divorce. Though Mom had mentioned they were separated, the finality of this statement caught me off guard. Ryan, I'm so sorry. Don't be, he said quickly. It's the right decision. Long overdue, honestly. Are you okay? He sighed, but it sounded more like relief than distress. I am. Better than I've been in years, actually. The counseling helped me see how unhealthy things had become, how I'd lost myself trying to keep her happy. I listened as he elaborated, explaining how the Palm Cove incident had forced him to confront patterns he'd been ignoring for years. How Vanessa's reaction, her rage, her refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing, her demand that he control his family, had revealed aspects of her personality he could no longer rationalize away. I should have stood up for you from the beginning, he admitted, when she first suggested uninviting you from the trip. I knew it was wrong, but it was easier to go along than to challenge her. We all make compromises in relationships, I offered. Compromises, yes. But this wasn't compromise, Emma. It was surrender. I surrendered my agency, my autonomy, my relationship with my family, all to avoid conflict with her. His voice grew stronger, more certain. I don't want to live that way anymore. As he continued talking, outlining his plans for the future, the Boston transfer he was actively pursuing, the therapy he was continuing individually, the boundaries he was establishing with Vanessa during the divorce process, I felt a profound sense of pride in my brother. The Ryan on the phone now was so different from the conflict-avoidant peacekeeper of 6 months ago. Anyway, he concluded, I wanted you to know before Thanksgiving. I didn't want it to be an awkward surprise. I appreciate that. And Ryan, I'm proud of you for doing what's right for you, even though it's hard. He laughed softly. I had a good example to follow. Some wise woman once showed me that sometimes you have to make dramatic gestures to protect your self-worth. After we hung up, I sat, watching the sunset with mixed emotions. I had never wanted to be the catalyst for my brother's marriage ending, yet I couldn't deny that the Ryan I'd just spoken with seemed healthier, happier, and more authentic than he had in years. Later that night, lying in my hotel bed listening to the distant sound of waves, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Family gatherings where I stood slightly apart, smiling obligingly while Vanessa took center stage. Holiday meals where Vanessa's preferences dictated everything from the menu to the seating arrangements. The subtle but consistent pattern of my needs being subordinated to hers, of my contributions being taken for granted while hers were celebrated. For years, I had accepted this dynamic, believing that my role as the accommodating one was somehow noble, that by bending to avoid conflict, I was being the bigger person. The Palm Cove incident had shattered that illusion, forcing me to confront an uncomfortable truth. My accommodation wasn't nobility, it was avoidance. By never setting boundaries, I had enabled the very behavior that hurt me. The following morning, as I prepared for the final day of the conference, I received an unexpected email from Vanessa. Emma, I'm sure Ryan has told you about our separation and pending divorce. I wanted to reach out directly as I've been doing a lot of reflection lately. While I still believe the resort situation was an extreme overreaction, I recognize that it didn't happen in isolation. My therapist has helped me see that my behavior, over the years, contributed to the dynamics that led to that moment. I'm not good at apologies, but I am sorry for uninviting you from the trip. It was inconsiderate, especially given how much work you had put into planning it. I should have found a better solution. I don't expect this to repair our relationship, but I wanted you to know that I'm working on myself and trying to understand my part in what happened. Vanessa. I read the email several times, searching for the manipulative angle, the hidden barb, the subtle shifting of blame that had characterized so many of Vanessa's apologies in the past. To my surprise, I couldn't find one. The message wasn't perfect. She still described my actions as an extreme overreaction, but it contained something I'd never seen from Vanessa before: genuine self-reflection. I crafted a careful response. "Vanessa, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate your reflection and acknowledgement. You're right that the resort situation didn't happen in isolation. It was the culmination of years of feeling dismissed and devalued within the family dynamic. I wish you well in your personal growth journey and hope you find the clarity and peace you're seeking." Emma, brief, cordial, neither inviting further communication nor shutting the door completely. It felt like the right balance, acknowledging her effort without pretending everything was suddenly resolved. The remainder of the conference passed in a blur of networking events and panel discussions. By the time I boarded my flight back to Chicago, I had a dozen new business contacts, 3 potential speaking engagements, and a newfound confidence in my professional identity. Whatever the questionable origins of my exclusive corporate retreat model, it had resonated with the industry in ways I hadn't anticipated. As the plane descended toward Chicago, I gazed out at the city lights scattered like stars against the darkness. 6 months ago, I had made a decision that defied all logic, prudence, and financial sense. I had spent an obscene amount of money on what was, objectively, an act of revenge. Yet that decision had catalyzed changes I couldn't have engineered any other way, in my family, in my career, in myself. 2 weeks later, I found myself driving the familiar route to my parents' house in Lakeside for Thanksgiving. The trees stood bare against the gray Michigan sky, a light dusting of early snow covering the ground like powdered sugar. I pulled into the driveway behind Ryan's car, noting the absence of Vanessa's luxury SUV that had become a fixture at family gatherings. Mom opened the door before I could knock, enveloping me in a tight hug that smelled of sage, cinnamon, and the subtle floral notes of her perfume. "You're here! How was the drive? Any traffic on the interstate?" I returned her embrace, breathing in the familiar scent of home. "Not bad. A little snow north of Kalamazoo, but nothing serious." Dad appeared behind her, his face lighting up with genuine pleasure. "There's my girl." His bear hug lifted me slightly off the ground, just in time to help me with the wine selection. The house looked as it always had during the holidays. Tasteful decorations, family photos, the dining table already set with Mom's best china and grandmother's silver. Yet something felt different, the atmosphere lighter somehow, as if a tension I'd grown so accustomed to I no longer noticed it had suddenly lifted. Ryan emerged from the kitchen, a dish towel thrown over his shoulder. "The prodigal sister returns. Come try this cranberry sauce I've been experimenting with." I added orange zest and a hint of bourbon. I raised an eyebrow as I followed him. "Since when do you cook?" He grinned, looking younger and more carefree than I'd seen him in years. "Since I realized I actually enjoy it. Turns out I have all sorts of interests I'd buried because Vanessa found them boring or inconvenient." The kitchen was organized chaos, pots simmering, bowls of prepped ingredients lined up neatly, the turkey roasting in the oven. Mom had always been territorial about holiday meal preparation, insisting on doing everything herself while simultaneously complaining about the workload. Today, she worked alongside Ryan with easy coordination, accepting his suggestions and laughing when he teased her about her precise measurements. "Try this," Ryan insisted, holding out a spoon of deep red cranberry sauce. The flavor was complex and balanced, tart cranberries mellowed by sweet orange and a subtle warmth from the bourbon. "That's incredible," I admitted. "Where did you learn to make this?" "YouTube," he shrugged. "I've been teaching myself to cook. It's therapeutic, actually." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of other guests. Soon the house was filled with the cheerful noise of family gathering. Megan and her husband David, Aunt Jane and Uncle Peter, cousins with children who raced through the house in excitement. Conspicuously absent were Vanessa and her parents, who had become fixtures at our holiday celebrations over the years. As we settled around the table, I found myself seated between Ryan and Megan, with my parents at either end. Dad stood to carve the turkey, his annual ritual performed with ceremonial solemnity. "Before we eat," he said, setting down the carving knife, "I'd like to say something." We all quieted, expecting the standard blessing or perhaps a toast to the chef. Instead, Dad's expression grew serious. "This past year has brought some unexpected changes to our family. Some challenging moments, some difficult realizations." His eyes met mine briefly. "But as I look around this table today, I'm grateful for those challenges because they've brought us to this moment, together, honest with each other, and I believe stronger as a family." Mom nodded, her eyes suspiciously bright. "We've learned some important lessons about what truly matters. About listening to each other, respecting each other's needs, and not taking anyone for granted." I felt a lump forming in my throat as I realized this was their way of acknowledging the transformation that had begun that day in Florida. The shift in family dynamics that had been set in motion by my uncharacteristically dramatic stand. "So today," Dad continued, raising his glass, "I want to toast to new beginnings, to family bonds that bend but don't break, and to each of us having the courage to speak our truth, even when it's uncomfortable." "To truth," Ryan echoed, raising his glass to clink against mine. "To boundaries," Megan added with a knowing smile in my direction. "To family," I finished, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the wine. The meal that followed was unlike any family gathering I could remember. Conversation flowed naturally, without the careful navigation around Vanessa's sensitivities that had become our norm. People spoke about real things: Ryan's pending divorce and Boston plans, Megan's recently confirmed pregnancy, Aunt Jane's decision to retire early and pursue painting. No one performance, no one watching what they said for fear of triggering a dramatic reaction. After dinner, as people dispersed throughout the house in various states of food coma, I found myself alone with Ryan in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher while he packed leftovers into containers. "Remember Thanksgiving 3 years ago?" he asked suddenly, sealing a container of mashed potatoes. "When Vanessa insisted we use her family's recipe for stuffing instead of Mom's traditional one?" I nodded, recalling the tension that had permeated that particular gathering. Mom was hurt but tried not to show it. "And I went along with it," Ryan continued, shaking his head. "Even though I preferred Mom's recipe, even though I knew it was important to her, I went along with it because it was easier than standing up to Vanessa." I placed a wine glass carefully in the top rack. "You were trying to keep the peace." "I was being a coward," he corrected firmly, avoiding conflict at any cost. "And the cost was too high, Emma. It cost me my relationship with you, with Mom, and Dad. It nearly cost me myself." The sincerity in his voice moved me. This was a Ryan I barely recognized, reflective, accountable, unwilling to hide behind easy excuses. "What changed?" I asked softly. He leaned against the counter, considering the question. "Watching you that day at Palm Cove. The way you stood your ground, refused to back down even when everyone was pressuring you to give in. It was like seeing another way to be. A way I'd forgotten was possible. I hadn't thought of my actions as inspiring. Excessive, perhaps. Petty, definitely. But not a model for others to follow. You showed me that sometimes drawing a hard line isn't selfish. It's necessary," Ryan continued. "That respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you require." Before I could respond, the kitchen door swung open, and Dad entered with another stack of dishes. "You two solving the world's problems in here?" he asked, his tone light, but his eyes assessing the serious expressions on our faces. "Just reflecting on how things have changed," Ryan replied honestly. Dad nodded, setting the dishes on the counter. "For the better, I'd say." He hesitated, then added, Your mother and I have been doing a lot of reflecting too, about the dynamics we created in this family, the patterns we allowed to develop. I looked up in surprise. My parents had always been loving but rarely introspective about their parenting or family functioning. We put too much on you, Emma, he continued. Expected you to be the flexible one, the understanding one, while we catered to more demanding personalities. It wasn't fair, and I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. The acknowledgement, delivered so matter-of-factly in the midst of loading the dishwasher, felt more significant than any dramatic apology could have. This wasn't performative contrition. It was genuine recognition. We're trying to do better, he added, squeezing my shoulder gently. To see each of you clearly. To value what you each bring to this family equally. Later that evening, as the gathering wound down and guests departed with leftovers and warm hugs, Mom pulled me aside. Your father and I have been thinking, she began, her voice hushed though no one was nearby to overhear. We'd like to plan another family trip, a do-over, if you will. I raised an eyebrow, memories of the Florida fiasco still fresh. Are you sure that's a good idea? She smiled, understanding my hesitation. This would be different. We thought you might help us plan it. A real family vacation where everyone's input is valued and everyone is welcome. The suggestion touched me deeply, not just the invitation itself, but the explicit acknowledgement that things would be different this time, that my contribution would be respected, my presence valued. I'd like that, I said finally. But maybe we should steer clear of the Florida Keys for a while. She laughed, the sound light and genuine. Agreed, although I hear Palm Cove now offers a special package inspired by your corporate retreat. Exclusive accommodations, personalized experiences. Mom, I groaned, mortified that she knew about this. What? Your father and I read the industry publications too. We're very proud of how you've turned that situation into professional success. Her eyes twinkled with mischief, even if it did start as the most elaborate revenge plot in family history. As I drove back to Chicago the following day, I reflected on the transformation that had occurred in just 6 months. My relationship with my parents had deepened, moving beyond the superficial harmony we'd maintained for years into something more authentic. Ryan had found the courage to make difficult but necessary changes in his life. Even Vanessa, in her own way, seemed to be engaging in genuine self-reflection. And me? I had discovered a strength I hadn't known I possessed, the courage to stand firm in my worth, to demand respect rather than hoping for it, to choose myself even when it meant disappointing others. The Emma who had sat in her Chicago apartment, reading Vanessa's dismissive text message, would never have imagined booking an entire resort out of spite. But the Emma driving home from Thanksgiving couldn't imagine not taking that stand, dramatic as it had been. Sometimes, it takes an extraordinary action to create ordinary change. Sometimes you have to book an entire resort to create space for a new beginning. And sometimes, the most elaborate revenge turns out not to be revenge at all, but rather the first step towards something better than you had before. The woman who had been uninvited from a family vacation via text message, deemed expendable because she didn't fit the couple's aesthetic, was gone. In her place was someone stronger, clearer about her worth, unwilling to be an afterthought in her own story. And that transformation, I reflected as the Chicago skyline appeared on the horizon, was worth every penny. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.